All right, well, this is a great group. Thanks everybody for joining. Looks like we've got 27 folks on the line here. So this discussion is around enhancing collaboration in Virginia higher ed for cybersecurity education. And it really is, it sort of grows out of a conversation that happened at VMI, Virginia Military Institute, back in February. So each February, there's a capture the flag event at VMI, and it's part of a conference called Cyber Fusion. The CTF is run and hosted by the Virginia Cyber Range, and the participants in the CTF are community college and university students mostly from CAEs around the state of Virginia, and those teams are invited, and so this year we had Kim, I don't remember, there were 15 teams maybe participating.
17.
Okay, 17 teams participating, and while the CTF is going on, so it's a 4-hour competition. While the CTF is going on, there are faculty members, the faculty coaches of the CTF teams. They have different discussions going on, sort of separate from the CTF, because they really can't interact with the CTF teams during the competition itself. So that group met, and again, it was faculty from the schools that participated in this conference, and a couple of faculty members per school, and it's both community colleges and universities. And there was a discussion about, again, improving collaboration between the higher ed institutions in the state, and what can we do as Virginia institutions to sort of improve things, and make cybersecurity education in Virginia more than the sum of the individual schools doing it. And I'm going to throw up, there were some notes taken during that event, and I've got just a couple of slides that I'm going to use to frame this discussion. And then I don't have a presentation to give. I just want to frame the discussion, and then I want to do what I can to facilitate discussion for the next 40 minutes or so. So here are the questions that were posed during this discussion at VMI. Is there such a thing as an identity for Virginia cybersecurity education? So is there something unique that we can bring to the table, and how can we, and that's we being higher education in the state of Virginia, work together on this? And really it's about improving collaboration between the higher ed institutions. And then, so the second bullet here, think about our location, the types of resources we have, who is benefiting in terms of workforce development, types of things we teach, places we'd like to send our graduates, and whatever else. So these are the questions. And I'll come back to the question slide in just a minute. But the next slide I'm going to put up is just some highlights of the discussion. So it was a long discussion, an hour or so, maybe more, and I was there for most of it, not all of it. These are some topics that were discussed, and I take these from some notes that Kim and her colleagues at VMI took during the event. First one here, we would like students to be able to take technical electives at other universities, right? So if I'm a student at Virginia Tech, maybe I'd like to take a course from GMU, and that's probably not something you can do right now. And is there a way to make that easier? And is that something that maybe Chev could help with, or somebody at the state level could help with? Second bullet here, how can we improve transfer credit availability, right? So if I go from GMU to Virginia Tech, what credits can I transfer? What cybersecurity courses can I transfer? And how can we make that an easier transition? And I think there's lots of things around community colleges too in that vein, right? So if I take a community college course at Lord Fairfax Community College, and then I go to another school, if I go to a 4-year, what transfers and what doesn't? And right now it seems like that has to be a one-by-one agreement between the community college and the university, and there's certainly no, I don't think there's a straightforward pathway to do that on sort of in an easier way. Third bullet here, the taxonomy of course names and majors differs between universities, making it difficult to compare them, right? So a cybersecurity course at George Mason University might be an information security course at James Madison University, or vice versa, right? And a major, I might have information systems security major somewhere, and somewhere else the major is called something else. And are those the same major? Or are they different? What's is there a way that we can classify these things and make it a little more clear amongst the different schools? And is that even a thing? I mean, should we do that, or should the schools be able to differentiate themselves? The fourth bullet here, there were private colleges there too, and the private colleges would like to be part of the conversation, right? So the point was made that folks like Liberty and Marymount and schools that are private schools, they don't want to be left out of the conversation, and sometimes I think they feel like they are, because they're there's different rules around how they're managed by the state. Fifth bullet, cybersecurity brings together technical and liberal arts. So how do we leverage the fact that cybersecurity is not just a technical thing? There are other aspects to it, and that's something that was brought up. And then there was a discussion, I guess, around clearances. Clearances are obviously very valuable to students after graduation, and I sort of know how clearances work at Virginia Tech. That's where I live and work. But how do clearances? Is there? I don't know. Is there a way that, I mean, so at Virginia Tech, for example, clearances usually happen around students who are going on internships to some three-letter agency or some defense contractor. That entity might pay for the clearance, but the school is not going to pay for any student to get a clearance. So I don't know if there's anything we can do around that, so that's the last thing that was discussed. I should have mentioned at the start here, my name is David Raymond. I'm the director of the Virginia Cyber Range. I'm administrative, so I'm AP faculty at Virginia Tech. I've been in higher ed for many years. And in a previous life, I was a no kidding faculty member, associate professor up in New York. But now I don't work on the academic side so much. I teach a class in cybersecurity at Virginia Tech in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. But my day job is not as a faculty member. My day job is in IT. So I report to the vice president for IT here at Virginia Tech, and don't report to an academic department. So my viewpoint of how the academic department functions and how how things are like this are handled at the department level is probably not complete, and I'm sure it's more complete amongst folks who live daily in that side of higher ed. Okay, so I'm gonna pause there, and I'm gonna ask Kim if Kim from VMI if I missed anything in that intro.
No, Dave, after that meeting, and we had, oh gosh, at least 20, 25 people in that meeting, and they were all very vocal that they wanted to continue the conversation, and it was agreed that, this conference that you're running now would be a good place, take this up again halfway through the year. We didn't know we'd be all virtual at this point, but the folks in attendance were, said they wanted to continue this conversation to see if we could maybe untangle some of these things. So I'm hoping that whoever's participating, that some of those folks are, in the room as it is right now and would like to. Are we doing this all by audio, Dave, or is it by chat? How is the conversation going to work?
I think people should just unmute and talk. That'll make things a lot easier. And I'm going to do my best to jot down some notes as we go through this and see what we can take away from it.
So please, say, what school you're from and what, start from that. So introduce yourselves and have at it. Oh, certainly somebody's got to start.
Give him a minute to find the mute button.
Okay, I'll kick it off. This is Tamara Lipscomb, Dabney Lancaster Community College. The only thing I came to this conference thinking that maybe I wanted to talk to folks about, okay, so I just came from a high school for 2 years teaching dual enrollment cybersecurity. I'm going to the community college as the IST program head teaching, you know, all the programs in there, but also the cybersecurity certificate. And I see that there's this area where we're teaching high schoolers and the community college students pretty much the same materials because the high schoolers wouldn't naturally come to us with that information. So how do we make something collegiate or high school level?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we draw that line, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good question. Any thoughts on that?
Hi there, Matthew. I'm a student, but I think I do have something very important to add here. When you're differentiating between the collegiate and high school levels, you have to remember that some kids really do want to learn. I had a very hard time trying to do that in high school. And, you know, I'm seeing a lot of the stuff that I did in my high school courses reflected in my college courses. I really don't think they should be separated, to be completely honest. Just looking at the curriculums and even looking at some of the things, and what's it called, Verso, I believe, comparing those to some of the college courses, they are very similar.
Okay, and so you didn't find that frustrating at all to have some sort of repetition?
I did find it a little bit frustrating just from the fact that I came from New Horizons Regional Education Center. So we do have a dual enroll agreement with Thomas Nelson Community College. But the thing is, the only credit I could get for, it was computer systems technology, networking systems technology, and finally cybersecurity systems technology. I found it a little bit frustrating trying to get those credits because the only credit they were actually offering us, TNCC was offering us, was typing, like, you know, a typing type course. It just was a little bit frustrating to have to redo some of that stuff when, you know, I could have already gotten credit. And there's some other stuff too, like I know some of my peers got credits, some cybersecurity credits towards a degree by taking like AP Computer Science, which, you know, was hosted at my home school, not at the technical center. So it was just a little bit weird that I wasn't getting that credit, if you get what I'm saying.
Right, I do. And I think that was the important thing where I am. We are offering these classes in dual enrollment. So the high school students are taking college classes inside their high school versus just a high school course. But I know there's another group of folks here that are teaching just the high school courses and seeing what they're teaching. I know that it's going to be a lot of overlap from what I also have at the college level. So I get your point, though. You probably should have been able to take all of that in dual enrollment.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that there should, if you do want to offer it both ways, from where I came from, York County School Division, we did have a regular just high school course, but it never met the enrollment capacity. So the college course really was the only option. And if I would have, you know, thinking back really, because I was just a freshman this year, thinking back, I think I would have rather had the only one option, and that would be the college dual enrollment course.
Okay, thank you so much for your input. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is Peggy Browse in this conversation from George Mason?
Yes, Kim, I'm here.
Okay, good. So if you remember, Peggy, back when we were talking back in February about, let's say, transfer students, whether they're coming from a community college or another college, and that they might have to retake a course. Let's say they go to Mason because you're an AMET school, right? That it seemed like they took the course at their previous college, but now they have to retake it. And I'm just using Mason as an example, at your school because it's slightly different content, even though it sounded like the same course. right? And don't you have, because you're a school of engineering, there's certain
Yeah,
parameters in
exactly.
your coursework, or that, we had a long conversation about calculus in that meeting too, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Well, I think that's why things like this are so important, because as a result of these kind of things and the range, um, I've met with groups in other community colleges to try to iron out the differences. The most recent one is with Lord Fairfax, and we've got an agreement now that's a direct one. But if you don't have a direct agreement, people are kind of trying to figure it out, and they don't have like this class equals this class, like our CYSE 101 is your, IS whatever. And so what happens is students come over, and the naming, we talked a lot about naming, because one of the things at Nova is they have a cyber degree, but not one, I think maybe one class migrates over to Mason in the engineering school in the cybersecurity degree. So the students take the cyber classes thinking that they're going to come right into the degree that I kind of direct. And what happens is they should be taking the engineering degree. So a lot of what I'm hearing a little bit so far is that we need to agree as a group, how everything kind of meshes together all through the state, which I think is really important. But we also need to be able to advise the students, because students take what they think, and even some of the advising they're getting is not correct. So Henry Kaufman is on the line too here, I think. He and I have worked closely together to get that match between one-on-one between the degree he just started and the one I have. But there's all kind of degrees all over the state and how they match. We have something called advanced, by the way, Dave, between us and Northern Virginia community colleges and a whole bevy of degrees. But again, it's like one-on-one. So I don't know how we do that at a higher level. I think we need to change some of the nomenclature. I think we need to have a clear understanding of what's in each of the things. And then I think getting Chev involved is probably one of the important things.
So
Is
the
there anybody
process,
on this call?
Um, this is Henry Kaufman from Lord Fairfax. I'm going to probably have to get off here too, because my president is giving a Zoom at 2:00. So anyway, yeah, Peggy and I worked together on a transfer agreement 101, but I wanted to add a couple of things to all this. Everything seems to be a 101, and I have to go and raise it just a little bit higher, and I probably will get in trouble with this, is that it's hard to get the administration, the VCCS, to consider certain disciplines, if you will, to even be transfer at all. And one of those is or a couple of those are the IT side and the cybersecurity side. We've tried to get them to consider the cybersecurity be a transfer, because they go to George Mason or do other places. And I have not been very successful at that. So that's one issue, is trying to get them to change their mindset. Two, is that there is a movement, I guess I can call that. I don't know if I want to call it movement. There's so many movements nowadays, you get in trouble. But it comes out to be is that there's something called Transfer Virginia, and I'm pretty sure people have heard of that. It's done by Chev and the VCCS, Virginia Community College System, where they're looking at courses or programs or courses, mainly courses, that will be considered to be transfer. And if you teach that course, it's going to go to any university or most universities 4 years at the in Virginia. I don't think they're working on cybersecurity or the IT portion of it yet, but that's another initiative, and it's a joint. And there's a person who is jointly, what's her name? Anybody know? Patricia. I can't remember her last name. That's jointly working with Chev and the VCCS to try to make somehow of a transfer pathway, if you will, between the community college systems in Virginia and the 4-year universities and colleges. Now I'll shut up.
so Henry, when you say the word transfer, are you talking about transferring credits, or are you talking about a student transferring from one program to the other program? Or is that all the same thing?
My understanding, since I'm not really involved in Transfer Virginia, it looks like they tend to be looking at course by course right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it seems to be. So if you take like ITE, I'll just give you off the top of my head, 115, that's going to, whatever they do, a resurge it, because one of the things I hear about, they may be redoing 115 and 119 or whatever you want to call on the line. is that whatever they come out with that as an outcome, that will be a transfer course that will go to the universities to count as something, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's all that's really, I know. I'm not really involved with it, but Patricia, what's her last? You know it, Dave, don't you?
Patricia, I don't know.
I got off the top of my, but I can't remember her last name off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in VCCS, the courses are at least a little bit more standardized than they are in the 4 years, right? Because you've got there's a naming convention for courses.
So we got a master course list, and you got to go by that master course list. And yes, they got naming conventions, but anything that's got IT in it seems not to be a transfer because it's an original thought to be going into the workforce. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's about it now.
Yeah, transfer Virginia. That's not a thing I was familiar with, but I'll have to look into that. It's interesting. So Peggy, you talked about the course naming conventions. What recommendation do you have on that? I mean, is it, if the state were to come and say, here's the naming conventions for your cybersecurity courses. I mean, is that something that we think that people would follow, or
Well, Dave, I don't know if they'd follow it. I think it's a good idea, but what's even more important is the content. Henry and I had to walk through every single course and all the content in every single course to make sure that what the knowledge was there that's coming across. But even at the naming, I don't want to plow through 30 of your courses at Virginia Tech to figure out which one matches my CYSC 325. And the name may be similar, but then I look at the content, and I've done this for almost all the state universities, and it's all over the map. And so what happens is that through ABET, you guys all know ABET that are in the higher ed engineering part of it, you have to be able to show that the content matches and that the objectives of the course match. So it's down to how much time bandwidth do you have and how much time do you have, because I may have one student coming in from Virginia Tech transferring, one from VCU, one from Lord Fairfax, and they're all different. So I have to do that one-on-one for every single one, where we try to keep the matches across, and we try to keep lists of what kind of is similar. But let's say I do that with one of your courses, Dave, and then you decide to change it and I don't know about it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I say that it's the same, and then I look and realize it's not. So it's really frustrating. And I know in the Zoom chat, some of the students are chatting back and forth a little bit. The students have to be going crazy because they think they're taking the right thing, even high school level and community college or whatever they're doing. And then they find out they get wherever they're going and they've got an extra year. So my big goal in life is to get students out of school in 4 years, no matter which school they go to and how they do it, and have a degree where they're actually going to make the money that they're expecting. And as a parent, most of us online are parents. I wanted my kids out in 4 years, and luckily I was able to do that. But a lot of students, I feel so bad about it. But anyway, I think content is a key. I think naming is at least a good start.
Yeah, and if you think of other programs, I mean, a chemistry student is going to have, I think, a fairly easy way to transfer between a college in Virginia to another college in Virginia, because chemistry has been around forever and the course names are meaningful, I think. And I guess we need to get to the point in cybersecurity that similar is true.
Another thing,
This is
several people.
This is Svetlana Filiatera, and I'm with Virginia Tech. And I can attest to, I worked with international students with international programs until recently. And it's been ongoing case for us at Pamplin as well. We work with New River Community College, we work with Nova, begin to work with Lord Fairfax, and it's interesting to see that community colleges have it more organized than we across universities. With exception, New River, because it's closer to us here in Blacksburg, and with NVCC, we work directly, just exactly like Peggy said, one-on-one, course by course, curriculum mapping the way I would do with a foreign institution. And that's time consuming. And then imagine you're a student. It's very confusing for students.
Yeah.
Another thing I like to add too is when I was shopping, I guess, for my degree, it was really difficult to gauge just what they were. I had to do some very extensive research just to figure out if it was under engineering or if it was under computer science or if mine were under disciplinary studies. It just trying to communicate more about just what department your degree is under, because you think cybersecurity, it can be several different things. And I ultimately picked my degree based on math just because I'm not that great at math. And I, GMU, they have, calculus, upper level courses that I take.
We're losing you, Matthew. We're losing you.
I'll chime in. This is Kim Connolly while we get Matthew back, hopefully. As a parent of a son who transferred, yeah, I can attest to what Peggy said. Very expensive, more years of college that we've had to pay for because he's had to take over classes that he thought, were checked off the list because they were just slightly different. And we didn't know. Who knew, We didn't know now, older, wiser, poorer for that experience. So, anything we can do to coordinate, I think, would be helpful for the state.
I think it also needs to go the full scale. It's like my history with trying to get into IT was over 18 years, 20 years. My high school work that I did was at one of the academy programs in Fairfax County. None of that transferred to college. And then I went to college and I had to retake all the boring classes that I've already taken because they assumed that you don't know how to type on a computer practically when you're introductory IT degrees. So you have to retake all these basic classes, and then you just get bored if you're a student that wants to work with new technology. It feels like you get pulled back several years when you jump into a 4-year program and they restart you at the beginning, and there's no way to get past it without individual waivers from individual professors.
Another thing that I like that Old Dominion University is doing, they have, and I'm not sure if it's this way at other colleges, they have topics courses that they wouldn't necessarily offer every semester. So next semester, I'm taking cyber warfare. Professor Saltot Karahan will be teaching that, and he's in the International Studies department, but he mainly works with cyber, so it's really great just to sort of kind of get some of those more, I call it I guess it is interdisciplinary studies, and just sort of kind of weaving that a little bit more into the earlier days of the curriculum, just sort of kind of instead of just saying, cool, here's your Linux course, and even if we still had to take that Linux course, I don't want to be taking something just like that Linux course, that basic level stuff just my first year. I think if the universities make a more coordinated effort to throw in some of those more unique classes and some of those topics classes, I really think it would just sort of kind of help in that regard.
So we've definitely identified, one major challenge is the whole course naming issue. So I guess the question then is what's the best approach to improving the situation? Is there a grassroots approach where we do it from the bottom up, or do we need to get somebody at the state level on board? And if so, is SHEV the right state level entity, or is there somebody else?
So while we're seeing at Monmouth University, I want to go back just a little bit because the flip side of what we were talking about is that I, as a professor, don't know the level of preparation my students are going to have coming in either. And so someone who's been through a very rigorous community college program and comes in with a lot of skills may look like they have the same coursework as someone who never touched the command line. So it's actually very difficult sometimes for me to know what's being taught at the community college level and what those courses mean. So the naming problem is a problem both ways. I think was important was touching on this too. You have to go through and look at each program, and you can't just look at course names. You have to go through and look at syllabi and maybe even the textbook that's used if there's a textbook. That sort of thing. I think the other thing is that on the other side of the pipeline, we're trying to put people into jobs and careers in cybersecurity. I've talked a lot with my brother and my sisters-in-law who are in the industry, and they're really not looking to hire from the college level in their corporations. They're looking to hire people with security certificates. So a lot of the community colleges feed directly into that. I'm not sure they're looking to place students with us so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know how many, I mean, there are high school students getting certificates now, and certainly community college students get certificates. Oh, there's probably less of that going on in universities.
Wouldn't certificates be a really nice, easy way to kind of prove that somebody has, you know, passed a certain degree of classes though? If somebody gets a Linux Plus certification, whether it's in high school, community college, 4-year place, shouldn't that be transferable as a credit-based kind of class? Like, you don't have to take this anymore. We will accept your certification.
Oh, that's a really interesting idea. I like that idea.
We have that at Old Dominion University. I believe it's the ones I know off the top of my head are the CISSP and the Security Plus. Those will you submit those to I think to your advisor, and then they'll just throw it in as 3 free credits towards your degree, and it can count as a prerequisite, I believe, to some classes.
Yeah, I mean, there's you know, certificates don't necessarily map to college level courses, but at least they can map to some of the content in some courses if you're looking for specific knowledge in a candidate coming in.
Dave, in ours, we try to equip students to sit for the exams for the certs.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're thinking about is having like technical electives, which one of the talkers was just talking about, having new topics each semester. We try to do that, and perhaps look at if you could sit for a cert that you would get 3 credits for a technical elective. But we're all bound within the university system and the community college system by SHEV and by getting accreditation. So it's very difficult to say someone has a whatever and they're going to get this. A technical elective is kind of the way to go. The thing too, though, we're talking about, I think we're talking about students that are kind of entry students that are 20, 22, 18 or whatever. They're not going to have the experience level you need to get a lot of these certs. So what they're going to be doing is just sitting up for the example. And before we run out of time, I just wanted to say, you were asking a minute ago, what can we do? Well, I think we're already doing things. We're meeting like this, which I would tell you 10 years ago probably wouldn't have been possible because universities were competing with one another. And through this cyber range, and basically, Dave, you get a lot of credit for this, we've got an amazing group of people from all different kind of universities that actually do want to make it work and do want to do this meshing that you're talking about without really saying, well, my university this, you know, your university that. So I think we already have kind of an infrastructure. And what I was thinking about too is that exercise that we did on every other Tuesday for 6 weeks or whatever, where we were mapping things, why not do something similar with a group of people and then bring it back to everyone and see what people are thinking, and at least get started on this? Because if we're as a group, like we're all, as many universities and community colleges as we can get together, the stronger we're going to be making some kind of impact with SHEV or whoever to get this meshing going on. I had mentioned in the meeting in March that at the graduate level, we actually had something like this. It was called the CGEP, where we shared classes across the different universities. So you could take a class at Virginia Tech and it would count towards your graduate degree at Mason. So I'm thinking of a similar kind of model to that. It's going to be more difficult, of course, and then roping in the even the high school level, and saying, here's what you need to take. It's so discouraging when you bring a student in, they've got a 4.0, but they don't have one class that matters when, you know, into the degree. So anyway, I don't think it's as bad as it may seem. I think we have a really strong group and infrastructure already in place.
Yeah, thanks, Peggy. I agree. I mean, we are doing something right now, right? We're talking about it and trying to think about how to make it better. Right. But it would be nice to be able to identify, you know, who can help us out at the you know, who can help us out at the state level. I mean, that might be helpful to the conversation. And you talked about sitting down and doing some mapping. I think that's a great idea. Are you thinking of like mapping sort of course to course from community college to university level, or what?
Yeah, something like that. I hadn't thought a lot about it, but you know what we did? That was one of the best experiences I've had this dumb summer, was sitting with you guys, you know, that every other Tuesday. It was just a blast. And basically what we were doing was agreeing as a group as to what matched.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I don't know how we would do it. I'd have to think a little more about the logistics, but I think it's probably more than possible to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have to think more about it, but that really worked. At least it really worked for me.
I think I've gotten good feedback from everybody involved. So I think that was a great, and we got definitely got some value out of it that we're going to share with the K-12 teachers mostly.
And David, this is Svetlana again speaking here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I'm looking and hearing this conversation, I go back to overall that this is a statewide issue. And I think VCCS has been working with Chef trying to resolve it through the pathways to university degree completion. So guaranteed admissions at Virginia Tech or at Mason, you can look up on VCCS, there are guides to transfer. And this is probably as unified as we've ever been at that level. So I think a lot of course mapping has already been done from VCCS to individual universities. However, the issue is between the universities. And then you come down to, okay, are we preparing our counselors? Are they really aware about each university uniqueness? And that's a problem as well. The community college level, it's like you cannot possibly know how each university is unique and each course and its degree is unique. So I think, you know, maybe Chef involvement and VCCS and each individual university, we need to continue along this degree completion route and really look how further coordination can help our students. There are already efforts, a lot has been done, but this is not just cyber issue, it's across the board, all majors.
Yeah, sure, yep. No, that's helpful, thank you. That's helpful. And I think it is across majors, but I think some majors are much more clear than others. So I'll just give an example. My son is a biology major. He transferred from another university in Virginia to Virginia Tech, and that was no problem. He walked in and he laid out his courses that he had taken, and they said, "Yep, that's what you should have took as a freshman, and now you're a sophomore at Virginia Tech." And so I think in some disciplines it's very clear, and you know, so how can we make it more clear in this discipline? Okay, this is all helpful, I think.
Dave, it's Dawn Hendricks, the CAE rep to Danville. The
Yes.
last thing you had on there was about the clearances, and there was a suggestion of maybe going forward to Mark Warner and seeing if the state could allocate some money, just like the company you had there that could have, you know, X number of people queued up for clearances, because that does cost money. Do you know whether that ever went forward to the state level and or the federal level about allocating money to have students start their clearances?
No, I had not heard of that. I'd not heard of that. So the idea was to get the state to pay for the clearances?
Well, either the state or the federal, or have Warner kind of carve out some money that could be used for the Virginia needs, going, okay, you want to get a job with the clearance. You can't start that when you graduate if you expect to have a job, you know, the month you graduate. It has to start earlier, and that does cost money. And they did have that company that was at least starting some of those students at the CTF, But there was some question in that discussion whether there's something else that could be done. I know that only some people could hold clearances or sponsor them, but was there some way at either maybe a state or a federal level from a, you know, with Warner to see if that could be done for Virginia students going forward? And that's what I didn't know, if that ever, you know, was taken on. I know after the conference, everything kind of changed in our world, but
Right.
that was just a question I had.
Yeah, no, I've not heard of that. I haven't heard anything further on it, but that's an interesting thing to potentially look into. I mean, the challenge is it costs a lot of money for the clearance, and when the clearance, when somebody gets a clearance, there has to be a specific need for them to have a clearance, and so you have to have companies on the far end that are going to receive the students into positions, or you know, the clear, or you can't even, I think you can't even start the process.
Right.
Right, you have
Right,
to have
but with
a sponsor corporation with the need, a company that has a need for a cleared individual to sponsor you to get a clearance.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. But there was some question whether that be expanded.
Yeah.
The conversation in the meeting was that folks had said, you know, they had students graduating that could not get jobs in Virginia because they didn't have security clearances, so they went out of state to take other jobs because, you know, it was just easier. And we had, in that meeting, we had a couple folks from Booz Allen, and who else was in there? I don't want to say it's GE, but I'll use Booz Allen as an example, that they were saying, yeah, that they'll hire people with clearances and then teach them cybersecurity, which is why they love hiring people out of the military so much. And so the question was, you know, we're graduating students into this field that we're saying there's, you know, 70,000 open jobs or whatever in Virginia, but those jobs are really open for people that have at least the basic security clearance. So they might be saying there's 70,000 jobs, but it's not for new graduates. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. So whether there is some funding that might be made available for Virginia so that some colleges could at least get some of their students security clearances before they graduate would be an interesting question to pose.
Yeah.
Well,
I know
it's
how this is going is, sorry, this is Chris from Purdue.
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was going to say, one way that I know local, I think we have the Virginia Space Grant Consortium around here that does that, and I know the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative has talked about it as well, is internships is really, you can use that as an in for getting that security clearances. So if you can find some way to kind of cost share the cost of an internship with the organization, getting them into those organizations early on where they can start getting those security clearances as part of an early internship is one thing I know that they're trying to do in this area down here, kind of in the southern area. I don't know if there's other areas that have looked into that route as well.
Yeah, we do that at Virginia Tech a lot. We have a pipeline of students into three-letter agencies and other places, and you know, those students have a clearance before they graduate. But that's because they do internships with companies and with agencies who get them at least interim clearances before they graduate.
Speaking to the
some
space grant. Speaking to the Space Grant Consortium thing, it is really helpful for some of those. Some of my peers have done that, and they found it very helpful to have that security clearance. And the problem I'm actually having right now, just searching for, you know, internships and jobs, is the security clearance requirement. And I know I do have to get started now, even though, you know, I'm a second year. I know there's a very long process involved in that, and I've looked to the space grant for some of them, but as of late, there's been just, I don't know if it's the pandemic or whatnot, but there's just been a little bit of a disconnect with the space grant and cyber. They tried to place me in like a materials engineering type thing too as well.
So last thing I'm going to throw, so we're out of time. It's 2:15. Last thing I'm going to throw out is there, how can we engage with CCI, Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, to push this further? Is that an avenue for us or not? And I know a lot of people on this call are probably involved in CCI at some level.
Well, I know there's the academic curriculum committees in each of the individual nodes, which when you were talking about kind of synchronizing, I know I'm on our local nodes committee for curriculum. And we've kind of had that kind of discussion locally to some extent. And that might be something if we have member universities at the academic curriculum level. The early conversation was talking about kind of syncing up classes. That might be a starting point to kind of pull universities together to have that conversation if we do it kind of from a ground up approach.
Yeah, to take a regional approach at first and then go up from there. Yeah, that's a good point.
So this is Kim Connolly. I'm going to jump in quickly just to point out in the chat that Lou Kadiri, who's from Senator Warner's office, has been listening in on this conversation and would like some more information on the request, for funding or help with the looking into getting security clearances or providing some funding to make it more available to colleges. So I don't know if anybody here, wants to take her up on that offer. She's left her email address there, but they can maybe outline, the issue and ask for help, or, somebody from that office might be able to follow up and see if there's something they might be able to do. So there's a great outcome from this. And my second point is who's going to contact CCI and move something along with this. So we're not just talking, but somebody will do it.
Yeah, I'll talk to CCI. Luis De Silva is an old friend of mine who's now the director of CCI, and he's somebody I can reach out to and talk to about it. Okay, this is great. I've taken some notes. My notes are probably incomplete, but I'm going to I'll cobble some notes together and I will share them with this group. I think I'll get a list of folks who participated when this meeting is over. So I'll share my notes with this group, and I think we can do things like I can talk to CCI. We can think about how to reach out to Chev, or at least take a look at their pathways to university stuff and see if there's something there that we can leverage to improve the mappings of community college courses to university classes. And then the point about mapping university courses to each other, maybe there's a mapping exercise that we can do, like Peggy pointed out, and get a group together who spends an hour every couple of weeks doing that, and after some number of month or two, maybe we have some product that we can share out and get a little bit of better handle on the mapping. Okay, so thanks.